If you guys have seen my videos in the past, you know that 90% of the time I am almost a complete shill and I love almost everything that comes out, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, or whatever. But there gets a point where you just can't defend something, and you can't defend it because you want things to be better in the future. And we're going to get into Madam Web. I just saw it and I've got a lot to say, and I'm basically going to sum up this whole movie for you in 3 minutes or so. That way you don't have to see it, and I'm going to give my thoughts on everything that happens and why this is honestly, in my opinion, a good thing that this movie went the way it did, and why you should just save your money. I hate being negative, but I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to you all if I was being dishonest, because we as the fans deserve a good product, and I don't think that what we got here is that. So let's talk about Madam Web. I'm going to try and be as constructive as possible, but I feel like I'm going to go off the rails on some things because I just don't understand how an $80 million movie like this, which has only made $6 million, I believe, in opening days, gets approved. And also before that, I want to point out at the very beginning that I don't think any of the problems with this film have to do with the cast. The amount of talent and the people selected for this film are stars. They are very talented actors and actresses, and there should be no reason for this movie to be what it is. These actresses in particular were given a piece of work and lines to read, and they did those lines to the best of their ability, and this is not their fault. So in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you everything that happens in this movie from start to finish. We start off in the jungle with Ezekiel and Madam Web's mom. Ezekiel's the main bad guy of the movie, more on him later. They're looking for spiders because spiders can cure some diseases and give powers, and apparently there's this cult/religious group of spider people called, I actually already forgot what they're called, but essentially there is a whole bunch of spider people that already exist in this universe. So Peter Parker, not special at all. There's tons of him that exist already. Whatever. Even though at this point Peter Parker's not born. Madam Web's mom is looking for this spider that gives the powers for health benefits so she can treat people. And Ezekiel just wants it for himself. Wow, shocker. Big, crazy villain motive there. They find the spider. Ezekiel shoots Madam Web's mom and she starts dying, but she's pregnant with Madam Web. So these spider people, after Ezekiel has taken the spider, rescue Madam Web and give birth to Madam Web herself. She has these powers because her mom was bitten by the spider, and then her mom passes away. We then jump into the future. Madam Web is in New York and she's a paramedic. And I immediately started getting a headache because the editing in this movie is probably, and I'm trying to be nice here, it's probably the most unprofessional work in progress type editing that I've ever seen. I remember in school, one of the first things I learned was the 180-degree rule, where you can't film things from one angle and then switch to the complete other side. It kind of confuses the audience. That's just the bare gist of it, along with just the jump cuts. They actually released a clip of Madam Web with a jump cut in it, and this isn't actually in the film. They do it correctly in the film, but everything surrounding this part is just super messy. They do extreme shaky cam stuff, and I'm going to show you visually what the camera does for 90% of the action scenes in this movie. It's super nauseating. It's like a handheld type movement thing. It's annoying and just feels very amateurish. Madam Web's a paramedic. She works with Ben Parker, yes, Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben is now seeing a new woman. Wow, this is really cool. I wonder who it could be. Obviously, it is May Parker. We don't see May, but we do see Mary Parker. That is Peter Parker's mom. And then there's 15 minutes of this movie where I sat there and was like, this isn't that bad. And this is near the beginning of the movie, so I was like, okay, was everybody kind of just joking around when they said this movie was terrible? There was 15 minutes in this movie that I thought were really solid. But before that, we see Ezekiel have a flash forward. He sees the future and sees his own death by the 3 Spider Women that haven't yet been introduced in the film. They're already wearing their Spider Woman suits, and yeah, they kill Ezekiel. So he's like, I have to go out and find these girls and kill them before they kill me. That's his entire motive for the movie. However, these girls don't have powers yet, and we're going to get into why that is just the biggest plot hole and plot mistake of this entire film later on. But back to the 15 minutes that were really solid, it's when Madam Web starts to get her powers. There's a baby shower for Peter Parker, and Emma Roberts plays May Parker, or Mary Parker, and I really liked this. This was great. Again, the cast and the people performing in this film, they're good. It's just the lines that they're forced to say, the editing, and how this movie goes a million miles a minute is just annoying. I don't know any other word to describe it. It feels like I'm watching a movie on TikTok, holding my hand down doing the double speed thing, because we have moments where Madam Web is a paramedic and then boom, all of a sudden she snaps into her civilian clothes and she's at a baby shower. It's just weird. Madam Web, Cassie, sees these 3 girls throughout the day, and obviously we know they're going to turn into Spider Women because, well, we saw that at the very beginning. They kind of just gave away the rest of the movie, but they didn't, and it's just mind-blowing how this got past executives and they just shoveled this out, because I'm going to tell you right now, that is pretty much the only time in the entire film, and I mean this, that we see the other 3 girls get spider powers and use them. I'm not kidding. In the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, that's all we see, period. But Madam Web starts to learn her power. She sees these girls and notices that they're going to die in the future at the hands of Ezekiel. And in this movie, there's like 2 main action sequences, maybe 3. The first one's on a bus. They do some time warping stuff with her knowing the future. And it's cool, but I think it drags on a little bit too long. But it just ends with them escaping Ezekiel. Madam Web kind of rescues them, but leaves them out in the woods to kind of stay there while she goes and figures out what's going on. And the girls decide, I'm hungry. We're not going to listen to Madam Web. We're going to go to a diner. And it's like, first you're trying to protect these girls, so you leave them out in the middle of the woods to do nothing for I think like 3 hours or so. And then they're like, I'm hungry. I don't care about the guy who's trying to come kill me. I'm going to go get some food. They go to this diner, and these girls are reported missing at the moment, and they think Madam Web maybe abducted her. So one of the bystanders calls the police and tells them that they're there. And Ezekiel has this kind of tech person that is scouting out for these girls so Ezekiel can find them and kill them before they kill him. So Ezekiel shows up at the diner, kills them. Madam Web goes back in time to stop that from happening, and then they take the 3 girls to Mary Parker's apartment so they can stay there while she goes to Peru to bathe in some water. She winds up in the Amazon forest. She meets this spider guy who has the powers of Spider-Man, like the other ones that I was talking about. He's like the only one left, I guess. And then Madam Web bathes in these waters and kind of talks to her mom in the past and the future. It doesn't really make much sense in my opinion. And then she's like, oh, I have powers. And then she goes back. And then during this time, clearly she finds out that Ezekiel knew her mom and killed her mom. But the line about her mom researching spiders in the Amazon before she died, that's actually not even in the movie, and everyone was hoping for it, but it's kind of in the movie, but it's not said in that exact order. Also, I want to point out, half of this movie's dialogue must be ADR. I mean, if you look at the lips of the people talking, half the time it doesn't match up. It's almost like dumpster fire after dumpster fire with this. So she goes to the Amazon and she comes back almost instantly, these girls still at the apartment, and then Mary Parker decides that, okay, she's giving birth. Spider-Man is about to be born. Oh no, we have to go to the hospital. Why the girls go with her when they're being hunted down by a masked killer, I have no idea, but they go with her to the hospital. Of course, Ezekiel finds them, stops them, Madam Web shows up, they get into this giant scaffolding battle, and then a giant letter S off of a Pepsi sign crashes down and kills Ezekiel. Madam Web does no fighting in this movie. Then again, she doesn't do any fighting in the comics, so why even make this movie in the first place? It's just very confusing. I feel like this would be much better if this wasn't a Marvel movie. Meanwhile, the 3 Spider Girls aren't doing any action either. They're just falling around, and it, again, not the fault of the actresses at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Madam Web falls into the water and she gets blinded by a fireball. She gets saved. Oh, and I have to talk about the CPR scene. There's a point in this movie where the girls learn CPR from Madam Web, and it goes on for like 5 minutes, and it's very awkward, and they think that since Ezekiel has the power to poison people, if they do CPR on the victim, they will live. So they do CPR on Madam Web after she defeats Ezekiel by dropping a sign on him, even though she didn't do it herself, and they save her. But now she's blind, so she kind of had to earn her blindness that she's known for in the comics. So she's blind, but she can see everything. But I want to get into the biggest plot hole of this film. Newsflash, these girls don't have spider powers yet. Therefore, all Ezekiel had to do in this movie was kill the spider. He was so afraid of these girls becoming Spider Women and killing him, which in the first place, if you just stop chasing them, they're good people, so why would they come hunt you and kill you? And spider people don't kill people as far as I'm concerned. But all he had to do was kill the spider, and he had it, and we see it multiple times in this movie. It makes no sense, and it's almost laughable. At the very end, we see Madam Web start to get her costume. She lives with these girls now, and there is a subplot about family and abandonment and things like that, but we don't know these characters long enough to really even care, because when they're introduced, it's kind of rushed through, and then they leave it as that. They kind of expect you to connect to it immediately. But now the 3 Spider Girls, who aren't Spider Women yet, but I guess will be, are living with Madam Web because they have nowhere else to go, and the movie ends with kind of a "we'll be heroes someday." No post-credit scene, no mid-credit scene setting up anything in the future. This was something. If you like this movie, cool. However, I was not one of those people, and I have to be honest with you guys, this feels like they just wanted to get something out there. Sony probably saw that Marvel was branching off into all of these new characters, all of these lesser known characters, so Sony probably thought, okay, we'll do the same and build out our cinematic universe. But this was just a dumpster fire because you take a very abstract character from Spider-Man comics who doesn't get into any combat, and Spider-Man himself doesn't like this person much, and you make a whole movie about him and a movie about Spider-Women where they don't actually ever get their spider powers in the movie. So the only Spider-Person character in this movie is Ezekiel, the villain, who is one-dimensional as all get out, and he wears a Spider-Man-esque suit, even though in the comics, he's kind of unique because he wears a tuxedo or business suit with no shoes. That would have been much cooler to see the whole time. I have to reiterate, nothing against the actors and actresses in this movie. This was just an editing nightmare, a story nightmare, which apparently went through tons and tons of edits and reshoots and things like that. But I have to tell you, I'm happy that this is happening. Why am I happy that this movie bombed? Well, because I don't think we deserve to get things like this anymore. You can't have a Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. Yes, Spider-Man is technically in this movie with Peter Parker being born, but that's it. This is not connected to the Sony Spider-Man universe that Venom is in and Kraven is possibly in and Morbius is in. This is completely separate. So why make it if you're trying to set up a cinematic universe and have this separate from everything else? I hope this is a wake-up call for Sony because they need to realize you need Spider-Man and you should just let Marvel Studios continue doing what it's doing. I wish Sony the best, I really do, and this is not going to do good for Kraven the Hunter, which comes out later this year, which I am in fact more excited about because I think this is a rated R movie and they're able to do more with the Kraven Hunter character. But I feel like Madam Web was just doomed from the start, and yeah, this is what happened. It does make me sad, but again, makes me happy because I feel like this is going to put a stop to either the Sony Spider-Man universe altogether and let Marvel Studios do their thing with Spider-Man and his characters, or it's going to steer the ship in a completely different direction. Again, so sorry for being negative in this. I have to be honest. I have to tell you guys my actual thoughts. So if you guys could subscribe to the channel, we're on the road to 1,000 subs. It would mean so much to me, and again, leave comments what you thought about this movie. I read every single one, and I most likely will respond. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.